back, everyone. We're going to get started. I am very happy to introduce someone who I haven't known in a long time, but she's made a huge impact in our student body and at our law school. Very energetic, and she's a great assistant dean of career services who's going to lead this panel. So let me introduce you to Ann Newton-McFadden. Ann?
Good morning. I'm so excited to be here with you today. One of my very favorite things about my job is getting to interact with students every single day. So looking out here at your faces and imagining you may be coming into my office next year, it makes me really happy. So welcome to Bloomington. Welcome to IU. We're so happy for you to be here. As Janet said, my name is Ann McFadden. I'm the Assistant Dean for Career Services. I came here this past July after spending 18 years in Washington, D.C. I practiced at the Justice Department, and before that I was in private practice and I clerked for a federal judge. So I've seen a lot of different aspects of the law, and one thing that I think is very relevant to my position is that I was involved in recruiting, hiring, training, mentoring at every single one of those jobs. So I am able to bring to my job a lot of perspective from a lot of different kinds of legal employers. I run the Office of Career Services, and we are made up of 6 professionals. We have myself and 3 directors. We all provide one-on-one counseling. So when you get here, you will be assigned to one of us as your career advisor, and we will work with you one-on-one to get to know you, to get to know your priorities, get to know your values, help you explore what it means to be a lawyer and where you might fit in the legal profession. We also have an assistant director and a coordinator, and they help us with all other aspects of recruiting, so bringing employers on campus to interview you. They post jobs for us on our job board. We put on all kinds of programming, and they also help us run our office. As I mentioned at the women's breakfast this morning, in addition to career services, we also have become really a hub for social activity in our building. We have free coffee and snacks for students every single day. And so as I always like to say, come for the free coffee, stay for the career advice. So it's really become a place for students to come and to gather, and we're just so excited every single day to come to work, and we love to work with students. So I wanted to give you just a little bit of information about what my office offers and a little bit of information about our career outcomes, and then I'm going to turn it over to our panel of alumni who are going to talk to you about their jobs so you can get a little bit of an idea of where you can go from here. So as I mentioned, all of you will be assigned an advisor when you get here, so we can get to know you one-on-one. It's really important to us to be able to provide you with individualized service. So in addition to the programming that we provide for the whole class, we will work with you one-on-one so that we can get to know you and get to know what you'd like to do. We have in our office, like I said, I had worked in government service and in private practice and as a federal law clerk. Others in our office have worked in law firms, in higher education, and we have a lot of different kinds of experiences, public interest, so that way we can really have people who have expertise in what you might be interested in. We help you explore your career options, and we do that through programming. So we bring in alumni. So Stephen has been here multiple times already this year. We bring in alumni to talk to you about their jobs so that you can understand kind of what options are out there. We help you with your job search materials. So most of you have probably done a resume at some point, but none of you have ever done a legal resume. So we help you with your resume. We help you with cover letters. We help you with communications with employers. We help you deal with the thorny issues that you're going to be faced when you have multiple competing offers at the same time, or when you're a third year and you're actually going to take a job and you need help negotiating the terms of your employment. That's what we're here for. We're here to do all of that. And we do lots of different fun things for you, too. So we put on networking events where we have attorneys from various practice areas, whether they're alums or just other people in the community, come down from Indy, from Chicago, from all over here to Bloomington to meet with you. And we lead students on exploration events. I'm actually getting ready to take a group of 12 students to Washington, D.C. next week for our spring break. And we're going to meet there with private practitioners, with government attorneys, and simultaneously we'll have a trip going to Chicago. And we do these kinds of events multiple times a year so that you can get out and about and see different options for you. And we have a very robust on-campus interview program and on-location recruiting. So we will bring lots of employers will come here in the fall and interview our students here on campus. We also, for those of you who are interested in pursuing careers in Chicago, we do an on-location recruiting program in Chicago. So the Chicago law firms we go to them. And that's a really nice event. What we did last year and what we'll do again in the fall is we all go up together. We provide you with mock interviews the day before the interview program, so you're really ready and you're prepped. And then you go in and you do your interviews. And it's been a very successful program for us. So those of you who are interested in Chicago, we've got that covered. But we work with students who want to go everywhere. So about 40% of our students will stay in Indiana, but the rest of the students will go elsewhere. And we have a robust pipeline of alumni all throughout the country, and we can help you get where you want to go. So I want to talk to you a little bit about our success. Every year, every law school is required to do disclosures to the ABA. So I was just going to give you some highlights from our ABA disclosures. All of this information is available on our website, so if you want to dig in deeper on Maurer and compare it to other law schools, you certainly can. Our students most frequently sit for the Illinois and Indiana bars, but we also have people every year take the D.C., New York, California, Iowa, Minnesota. People go everywhere from here. And this Office of Student Affairs is very involved in helping you get ready for the bar, make the selection of what bar you're going to take, and that's something that the Career Service Office can also help you with. Our employment rates, we are consistently above the national average for number of percentage of the class that's employed 10 months after graduation. That's sort of the industry figure that all law schools are judged on, and that goes into our rankings as a school. For the class of 2015, 78% of our students were employed in long-term bar passage required jobs, and we had and JD Advantage jobs, and 82.8% of our students were employed at 10 months after graduation. In 16, it was 82%, and then 91% overall. And in 17, it was 79% and 87% overall. So those numbers are higher than the national average. And this year, we're still finalizing our numbers, but we look to be slightly above last year. So we will help you get where you want to go, and we're very happy to work with you every step along the way. So I would like to then, I think, go ahead and start us with our panel. We're very lucky to have with us today 3 of our alums who are from different years. So Sarah Doty. She is the class of 2017, and she's currently working as a law clerk upstairs for Judge Hamilton, who is of the U.S. Circuit Court for the 7th Circuit. We're very unique among law schools in that we have a federal circuit court judge chambers in our building, so that provides some unique opportunities for students and for alums. Zach Heck is the class of 14, and he is an associate at Taft, Stenius, and Hollister in Dayton, and he works in business litigations and cybersecurity. And then we have Stephen Reynolds from the class of 2008, who does commercial litigation, and he also does data security and privacy at Ice Miller in Indianapolis. So I'd like to have each of them introduce themselves briefly and tell us about their practice and also about what activities they were involved in at Maurer, because it'd be nice for you guys to be able to hear kind of how you get to where they are. And then I'll have some questions for them. So I guess we'll start here with you, Zach.
Sure. So while I was in law school, I tried to be as active as I could in a lot of the on-your-feet type activities. So I was a semifinalist in the moot court competition. I joined the executive board of the Sherman Minton moot court competition, where myself and one of the other students wrote the problem that the 2Ls were required to argue and litigate in front of alumni that came back to judge, professors that came in to judge, all of that. I competed in the trial competition. I competed on external teams with the ABA mock trial competition, the Jessup International Moot Court competition, and I was also a managing editor of the Indiana Law Journal. So that took up a lot of my time while I was here in Bloomington. I wanted to go back to Dayton. I'm from Dayton. That's my home. And Career Services were able to help me in tracking down alumni that worked in Dayton. I had the opportunity to network with them and was offered a job at a business litigation boutique right out of law school. Did a summer associate position with them in between my 2L and 3L year. They hired me on for after graduation. Worked there for 4 years, where in addition to traditional business litigation, I was litigating a lot of Fair Credit Reporting Act cases. So my clients had bulks of consumer data, a lot of data that's very vulnerable, and those clients started looking proactively at what happens if there's a breach, what happens if there's a federal investigation about our handling of this data. And so myself and a partner, we started to develop a practice of our own that really had more of a data governance, privacy, regulation type angle to it as opposed to traditional litigation. And then just last year, we moved that practice to Taft, Stettinius, and Hollister, where 90% of my practice deals with working with federal regulators, working with startups and companies on developing data governance practices, administering administrative, technical, and physical safeguards for their data, compliance with HIPAA, with Fair Credit Reporting Act, FERPA, all these laws that are designed to protect our privacy as consumers, helping those clients work through that. And then, of course, in the event of a data breach or a security incident, guiding those clients through that process of giving notice, of dealing with state and federal investigations, and if they're defendants in a lawsuit, litigating those claims out.
Well, hello, welcome. I'm very glad that y'all have decided to attend the Admitted Students Day. I did not, and that was a huge regret of my law school career because I came in not really knowing what I was doing at all. So I came into law school not knowing what I wanted to do, and unfortunately that has not changed. So my path in law school, I treated it like, I often called it the law school buffet. I did a little bit of everything. And unfortunately that definitely stretched me a little thin at times. But I was able to do everything from the Inmate Legal Assistance Project. I was the student director of that project for a while, where we would work with federal inmates to help sort out legal problems, because inmates don't become exempt from the law just because, oh, you're guilty, here you go. They still have family issues. They still have issues with conditions of confinement. It was actually a really enriching and diversifying experience because we covered everything from divorce to, I could bore you forever about ILAP because it's amazing. You should join it if you come because it's awesome. I also did the Law and Drama Society, which I hope is still a thing, because the last time I was on this stage, I was in a toga. We'll just stop there. But I did a lot of academic things as well. I did the trial competitions, the moot court competitions. This all sounds very overwhelming, I'm sure, because there is a lot. When I was listening to you talk, I was more like, oh my God, how did you have time for classes? But the end goal here is to learn how to be a lawyer and really get a job. It's wonderful that Anne's hosting this because that's why we're here. We want a job in the law. And I really feel like Maurer helped me do that on both a practical level, like, okay, how do I be a good lawyer, to the practical level, okay, how do I get employed? And so I actually apologize because those 2017 numbers are a little lower, partially because of me. So the bar exam in July 2017 was the 25th and 26th. I went into labor with my son on the 25th and had him on the 26th. And I'm good at multitasking, but I'm not that good. So I ended up taking a year where I was considered underemployed, working with a local circuit court judge who's now retired, but the CSO was able to help me find that position that fit with my unique circumstances and really get some practical experience that didn't require the bar, but would also give me some things that would help me get a job, which ultimately they did, because I'm working with the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals, which is an amazing opportunity and an incredible experience. And so I'm also... my family recently made the decision to stay in Indiana once we're done because we love Indiana. And as you hear the numbers, a lot of us stay here because Southern Indiana's awesome for some reason. That totally anyway, that's another conversation. But so I'm very happy for all that Maurer did. It also, a little side tangent and then I'll stop, but it really helps that we are the best law school in the area. We have Notre Dame, but they're so far away that they're not even competition. And so when I wanted a job or I wanted an internship, I was able to go to Indy. It's a little bit of a drive, but I was able to go to Indianapolis for the summer and work with the United States Attorney's Office. And I was able to get just incredible opportunities. Bloomington is a fantastic community, and they have a lot of legal needs because we're kind of isolated. So we have big town problems with the small town feel. And so there are just so many opportunities to start working now. But fortunately, these are all on the horizon. Your first year, you will get a chance to just focus on learning how to learn the law and be a law student. But then you'll find it just explodes, and it's so wonderful, and it's very helpful later down the road.
Thanks, everyone. And my name's Stephen Reynolds. I'm a partner at Ice Miller in Indianapolis. I say Indianapolis, but I travel constantly for work, so my assistant jokes that, why do you even have an office here anymore? I also do data security and privacy law. I co-chair our group of about 15 attorneys who do data security law. I came in this area because my background was in IT. I'm from Florida originally, and I was working as a software developer in Florida before going to law school. I had no connection to Indiana before coming here. I met my wife here in law school, and she's from Indianapolis, and here I am still in Indiana, I think about 14 years later since coming to Bloomington. So this has really become my home. I will say about this law school, I got my first job, my summer internship through the Career Services Office here at IU. I think you have a fantastic network here of alumni and an office that really does help you find and connect with people. I had, little, experience with the legal industry when I came here. I didn't have like lawyers in my family or anything. So I remember first going in to meet with Career Services after, your first couple semesters, whenever it opens up and you can start talking to employers, because there's a period of time where you can't, because they really want you focusing on your grades and your classes in your first year. And I went and met with Career Services, and I hadn't applied to work anywhere at any firms. I think I just brought like my resume from when I was a programmer and just added on, I went to law school. It's not really how legal resumes work. I had like what languages I could code in and stuff like that. Really not what law firms cared about, but I think I kept a little bit of that on there. But any event, the career services person I met with while I was in the office with her called someone at Ice Miller, the firm I'm at now, and literally just called and set me up on a lunch interview while I was in her office. And so I went, I think maybe the next week or so to that lunch interview. Got my summer clerkship from that. I clerked at Ice Miller, had an offer to come back, and then I went back home, close to home. My 2L summer, I went to a firm called Foley & Lardner. They have about 1,000 attorneys, at least at the time, across the country. I was there in their Orlando, Florida office, and I got a job offer there too. And the nice thing, there are alums everywhere. I travel constantly for work. I frequently meet up with alums from this school. I was in New York last week meeting with clients in the financial services industry. I'll be in Texas, in Houston next week, meeting with clients in the oil and gas industry and drilling industry. And I already am reaching out and connecting with alumni from here who live in those cities, and I frequently do when I travel. I like to say, my first clients were people I went to school with here. So, I think the benefit of law school, and one way to look at it too, in addition to what Sarah said, is, getting a JD, passing the bar, getting employment. Also, you're building building friends and building networks here. And I think this school, more than a lot of other law schools, empowers you to do that. I think the competition here is a healthy competition. It's not something to where, you end up hating the people you are in law school with. And I say that because there are other schools where that is the mentality, where, it's hyper competitive. It's kind of a sharp elbows kind of school. And I don't like those types of environments. I lead a team at my firm, and I don't like to foster that kind of environment. So I feel like if you're, you like coming to a place where you will actually like the people you will go to school with, IU Bloomington is a place for you.
Excellent. Thank you, guys. I'd like to turn it a little bit. You kind of have touched on this a little bit, but I'd like to, for those of students or the admitted students here who are trying to decide why they should come here, what's your sales pitch? Why did you choose to come here? And what advantages did you see in your life from having come here?
You don't mind, I would love to start this
Go,
one,
Sarah, yeah, go
because
ahead.
So I actually did not start here. I was a transfer student. I started at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill because I was from North Carolina, and that's a great school. It's where I graduated my undergrad. But my husband got into the PhD program here at the School of Econ, and since I married him for more than just the tax break, I came here and transferred after my first year. I was extremely timid coming here. The University of North Carolina, fantastic school. I loved it. But when I was at Carolina, there were 7 law schools in North Carolina at the time. I think now there's 6. And Carolina was not the best one. So from day one, we were all competing to get the jobs. The competition was tangible. Not only did you have to be the top of the class, but you had to have the best internships. You had to have the best. They had a week-long pro bono winter session where the competition for it was so strict, like it was so intense to get it, that students were lining up literally at 3 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning. Some of them camped out overnight so that they could be first in line to get the one they wanted because it mattered that much. And so it was just, I don't want to say it was inhospitable. I don't want to say but it was not an environment where I knew I could thrive or where I would really enjoy 3 years of my life. So I come here, and it was not like that at all. I was definitely challenged here, but it was academically, not the frantic, we need the pro bono hours, we need the pretty resume. I mean, they certainly helped me build it, but it wasn't like, it wasn't do or die like it was at my first law school. And so I will always be grateful to Maurer for that. And I'm such a Maurer advocate because it was completely different from my first year. And I've made a lot of really, really good friends who are all across the country and who are all employed. But yeah, so that's why I would recommend seriously considering coming here.
Yeah, Maurer first came on my radar because they offered me a full ride. So that made them very appealing. Why I chose to stay was primarily because of panels like this, because of the alumni involvement in the school. When you're an alumni, when you've graduated, you become an advocate for your law school because in your peers and your social networks and your professional networks, there are judgments made about your pedigree, about the education that you receive. Some of that diminishes over time based on the clientele you develop, the practice that you develop. But there's also a pride that you take in your alma mater. And so whenever someone sends me a student and says, hey, they're interested in practicing in Dayton, I make sure that I can get a cup of coffee with them or I can get lunch with them and talk to them about the opportunities in Dayton, or if they are looking to practice privacy law and Taft has an opening. I do everything I can to help them get an interview because I want to advocate for my law school. I want to advocate for the place that did a lot for me. And so all the alumni are like that. And like Stephen said, we're all across the country. And another thing I'll add to what Stephen said, he met his wife in law school, so did I. So if your interests go beyond, Maurer has that effect on people. But alumni are everywhere, and they will be your fiercest advocates. And they come to the law school. You have panels. I'm sure they still do it, but Thursdays and Fridays for a semester, they'd have these practice pointer panels where they'd bring in 3 alumni and they'd talk about a day in their life, what they do, what kind of practice they have. And you've got the opportunity to go up and talk to them and meet with them. And sometimes they take students out for dinner and you can learn more about what they do and those opportunities. Moot court, all those judges are alumni. They come back because they enjoy being part of your education. And so you can network with them, you can work with them, and you can go to the Career Services Office like I did and just say, I think I want to be back home in Dayton. Who are the alumni that are in Dayton? Where do they work? And I got the list, I got some introductions, and I was able to get the job that I wanted. And now as a practicing attorney, what stands out for Maurer is from day one, there's going to be an emphasis on professionalism. And you see that in the legal professions course, which is unique to Maurer in the way that they approach it. But from day one, they emphasize that you are entering into a profession where there are expectations of collegiality, of building community, of working collaboratively. And that is something that gets you so much further in the practice of law than if you try and have that cutthroat mentality or you have that super competitive at all costs type of mentality. And I can tell you that I work a lot with the Federal Bar Association in Dayton, and it's that mentality, that approach of professionalism that helps you to get to where you want to be in your career.
I'll just add on a couple points, and then I realized I left something out from the earlier question about the activities I was involved in. So really, it is the strong alumni network that I would say would be, my number one selling point in the culture here that we've already talked about. I'll just give a quick example. I'm going to call out Ruben here. We drove down from Indy together. Ruben Pouchet is also an alum here. We are speaking on a panel to the Black Law Students Alumni Association. After this, we're going to host a little session on how to interview for jobs and tips for being a summer clerk at firms. And so I just use that example, and Ruben's, he's at Barnes, so he's probably billing hours right now with his laptop. But I use that example here to say, I come down here, pretty frequently. I always, if a student emails me and wants to get coffee or have a phone call, it may take me a little bit to respond, as we are all very busy, but I will get back with them. We will get that scheduled, and every alum I've reached out to is the same way. So I think that's the number one selling point. I miss discussing the kind of activities I was involved in here. I will say there are so many things to get involved in here. If you can't find something that fits your interest, I'd be amazed, but you can create that here. So, I did the outreach for legal literacy, so we would go and speak to kids at elementary school about law, and that was kind of fun. And then I did, pro bono clinics where we're helping domestic violence victims get protective orders against, in abusive relationships. I mean, there's kind of any number of things. I did an appellate clinic. We got to do an argument in the Seventh Circuit. I didn't get to do the argument, but we got to watch in front of the Seventh Circuit while in law school. He represented, I think, a bank robber, or he was the getaway driver in a bank robbery, appealing his sentence. So, there's any number of activities you can do here. Anything you can think of, it probably already exists as an organization here, and if not, you can form it and find other people who are in that interest. I think there was someone here, the last time I spoke at a panel like this, talking about they were very into this obscure board game, and they found someone else here who was also into this obscure board game, and they got together and found other people to play it with them. But anything you can think of, Bloomington's pretty eclectic. You can find it here.
Thank you very much. Okay, so we'll have time for one more question, and then I want to make sure that you guys get a chance to ask our panel questions if you have some. We've talked a lot about the important, about ways of getting jobs, because obviously I'm the Assistant Dean for Career Services, so that's sort of my focus. You should not be thinking about jobs the first day that you get here. Obviously, you need to focus on school, but eventually you will want to start thinking about jobs. So I would like to ask our panelists if they could briefly speak to how they incorporated their internship and job search into their routine with school, since they're so busy with schoolwork, et cetera. Stephen, do you want to start?
Sure, I can start. I will say, because I wanted to, my original first choice was to go back to Florida after being here. So I had to travel a lot for interviews. So it does get tough, especially during your second year, looking for interviews. But I felt like all of my professors, I was looking for an old email, and I guess they're still all in my Gmail. I saw emails where I'm telling my professors, hey, I'm going to be missing class because I have this interview, and they're all pretty accommodating on that. So I would say that as long, kind of plan out, be a little strategic, don't apply everywhere. I probably did a little more flying and traveling to interviews than was necessary. But when you're looking at trying to get a job, you're really focused on that. So I think you can make that balance happen. And then the other thing I'd say is use your network of professors here. I had an adjunct who was a former partner at, I think it was, I forget which law firm, but I was interviewing at that firm, and I told him the list of the people I'm interviewing with, and he went through and told me about every person. And then when I interviewed with them, it was dead on, everyone's description of them. And it was great because, you kind of tailor yourself to those personalities to some extent when you're interviewing. So I'd say, let your network here be a part of your interview process. Tell your professors where you're going to interview. They may know someone there. So I kind of incorporate it all into one.
So when I was here, I for a while thought I wanted to be a prosecutor, which again, I still might, I don't know. So I was able to get through the CSO an internship with the local prosecutor's office, and I did that actually for 2 years. And in my third year, I got to sit second chair on a jury trial. And I got to help select the jury and actually interview witnesses and object to things. It was an unparalleled experience, and I gained just so much insight on how this really works just from that 2-hour trial. But I was able to work with my professors who were, very accommodating. Again, they understand that experience is not, I don't want to say it's more important than classwork, but it's definitely as important. And so they are always, willing to, sure, sit out this class. It was, some professors, most of them use the Socratic method, but some do schedule what days you'll be studying. I'm like, look, I'm not trying to duck out, I promise. I have a jury trial. And they're all very accommodating. But then, it is important to, and that's why I love that the Career Services Office is almost like a place to practice networking now. It's a great place to get coffee and socialize and visit. And, they were selling, for Singing for Summer Salaries, to help fundraise, they were selling ice cream and baked goods and things. things. But it is a way to practice networking. And so you're kind of already, just by being in the CSO and just by being here, practicing your interviewing skills and your networking skills just by going to get coffee. Makes it easy.
Yeah, I think, as they said, your first year in particular, your number one job is to get as best of grades as you possibly can. That's the number one goal always. To balance looking for internships, clerkships, jobs, it's like anything else, right? It's organization. It's staying on track and keeping a calendar for yourself so that you can balance that. For me, I remember the legal professions class had a requirement where, in addition to judicial ethics, that is the primary basis of your exam, you had a paper that you had to write in which you had to incorporate 5 interviews with different practicing attorneys. And so you were required to find 5 attorneys and interview them. And Career Services can help kind of link you with some of those interviews. I just cold called people in Bloomington and met with a couple solo practitioners, met with a few people back home on, it would have been spring break that I talked to some attorneys at home, but it forces you to ask questions about attorneys like, what does your day look like? What does it look like when it starts, and then how it goes to the end of the day? What kind of cases do you do? What kind of work do you do? Do you interact a lot with clients? Or are you mostly in your office? And so you get a sense to, one, figure out what type of practice you want to adopt, what works for you, what kind of lawyer you want to be, but also you're practicing those opportunities of networking, and you're building relationships. You're building connections that you can go to and that can come back and help support you. So, like Stephen said, professors are very accommodating when you have to miss class to go into an interview. I had to do that a few times to go back home for interviews, and there was no protest. There was no, well, you better make sure the next class you're extra prepared. There's nothing like that. Everyone is supportive because they know that we're here to help you succeed. And so whatever the administration, whatever your professors can do to help enable that, they're going to do that.
Thank you. All right, so I see our fellows are back here getting ready to take us to lunch, but we do have time for maybe 1 or 2 questions. Does anyone have a question for the panelists? For me?
Standing between food right now.
I know, right? I know. Okay. Oh, yes. Uh-huh.
Can you talk a little bit about what it's like to be sort of an associate at a law firm? Because you're in a John Grisham novel, and they work 100 hours a week, and it's completely miserable. So I'm hoping you guys have a little bit better experience than those folks.
We work about 98.
Right, yeah. The 100 is if you're at Barnes. So for me, I am at a regional office of a law firm that has 450 attorneys nationally. And it varies based on your office. It varies based on your practice group and the kind of work that you do. I can tell you that most of my colleagues in my class, we bill probably between 160 to 150 hours a month, which sounds like a lot, but when you break it down, that's 40 billable hours a week plus about another 10 to 15 hours of just administrative work where you're keeping track of your hours, you're just doing your basic administrative duties that you can't really bill to a client, but you're working in. But at the same time, it's gonna vary, and it depends on the law firm culture. And so when you're interviewing with jobs, you're interviewing with potential employers. It's a two-way street, right? They're trying to figure out if you're a good fit. You're trying to figure out if they're a good fit for you. There's firms when I was looking that I immediately took off my list because I had friends that worked there, and I could tell the toll that it took on their personal life, on what they wanted to do, and I just didn't want to have a part of that. So a lot of firms respect work-life balance. I work at a firm that does, and so with respect to Taft, they just introduced a 4-month maternity leave policy, which is one of the first firms, I think, nationally to institute that. They've made great strides with gender and diversity inclusion and putting up programs and initiatives to help build that and help grow that. And Our billable hour requirement is $18.50 a year. If you hit $19.50, you're eligible for an automatic $7,500 bonus. If you hit $20.50, you're eligible for a $12,000 bonus on top of a discretionary bonus. So if you want to work those extra hours, you're incentivized to do that, but you're not required to unless the needs of your practice require it. But it's going to be different for every firm. But I've had absolutely no complaints with my work as an associate, and part of it's just with who you work with in day-to-day practice, and they've been very accommodating for me.
So is Taft hiring? That's
If you can litigate, our Dayton office is actively looking.
The only thing I'd add on to what Zach said, and I completely agree with, is that not only is every firm different for that, but the practice groups within firms almost operate as their own little businesses within different law firms. So if you go to like Kirkland & Ellis in Chicago in their litigation group, your experience as an associate is going to be much different than someone, say, in their real estate or tax group. So just keep that in mind as well. Not only is each firm different, but sometimes the practice groups within firms are wildly different in expectations for hours.
All right. Well, I don't want to keep you from lunch any longer, so join me in thanking Zach and Sarah and Stephen.